So, what I want to talk about in this video is dealing with problems that you're going to experience in academic research and in a lot of projects in terms of, just broadly when you are doing anything that is novel and that you haven't done before, you're going to be dealing with all of these problems. So, if you don't know me, I'm Professor Dave Maslach. I'm Associate Professor of Innovation Strategy and Entrepreneurship. And I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There were so many people that helped me out that I wanted to pay the favor forward to help you out as much as I possibly can. So this video is probably going to be geared mostly for graduate students or somebody that's doing a novel project. Maybe they are building software, maybe they are doing something that they haven't done before, and they're venturing off into the unknown. So they're doing something that's innovative that nobody else has done. And the reason why I'm sort of focusing on research is because that's what you do. That's the name of the game when you're doing this, is you're venturing off into the unknown. So we run into this problem, or we run into all sorts of problems all the time. And the reason why I'm actually talking about this is my own experiences. I had this wonderful conversation yesterday, or wonderful presentation yesterday. I was talking about the Reciprocity Project with a bunch of economists. And if you go onto the website, so it's reciprocity.com, and the E is written with a 3. I don't say that. Hello, Hattie. It's nice to see you. Absolutely amazing that you're here. So if you go onto the website, it's not perfect. And I know that. I'm well aware of this thing. So if you think about every project that you're working on, it's going to consume a lot of resources to do that. So far, it's consumed tens of thousands of dollars to do this out of my own money. This is not funded through, sort of research funds and stuff like that. This is my family actually building out the Reciprocity Project. So I've convinced my wife that this is my hobby, and she's willing to actually pay for some of the stuff, or our family is willing to pay for this, because I think I really see the value in some sort of feedback software, and where people actually interact and sort of do better research on the on the front end of it, but then giving access to researchers that they can actually do A/B experiments on the background, because there's nobody else that's doing this at this moment. And there's not really a good source of, there's not a great website out there where we can actually become better researchers, better writers, better graduate students, but at the same time, get access to valid experiments, and organizational experiments. And the problem is when you go and look at it, I know it's imperfect. And that's what a lot of the complaints were, is that they're sort of surface level complaints. It's not as attractive as one would think, that there is some flaws in it and whatnot. And I'm well aware of all of those things. It's not like it was, this is news to me in any sort of way. And if you're a graduate student, you would have this same experience, right? When you go to your advisor and you hand off your work to them, they are going to present all of these flaws. When you go and present your research, when you go talk about your research in general, or you go and talk about something that you're working on in general, those reviewers, those people are going to find all these different flaws in it. And the reason is it's really easy to identify flaws. The hard part is actually coming up with solutions to those particular things, right? So reviewers might see flaws right away, and you can see those flaws if you've been working on them, but it's really hard to actually work on those solutions and come up with solutions around those particular things. So the difficulty that we run into often is coming up with those solutions, but also realizing that we're constrained. We're imperfect. We're problematic. We don't have having unlimited resources at our fingertips is impossible. That's not what we have access to. So as research folk, we have to learn how to deal with that. And so how do you actually deal with the fact that you don't have the resources that you want to have access to, and you can't do everything? Well, the biggest thing, and this is why I'm constantly talking about this. There's three people that are on here. Make sure that you say hello. I want to get to know you. But the most difficult thing that you have to deal with is knowing that you're imperfect, knowing that you have problems that are bigger than that you can personally tackle at this moment. So getting through that belief in yourself to know that you're imperfect and you're never going to be able to solve every problem is a real fundamental problem and a fundamental issue that we have in science and as researchers. It's very difficult to develop that belief that you can't do everything and that you are imperfect and you have to be just perfectly fine with that. So to deal with that, you have to keep moving forward. I think that's the important thing that you can do at this moment is to keep moving forward. Whenever somebody knocks the thing that you're working on or identifies problems with the thing that you're working on, is don't get discouraged with that feedback that you get. That's so important. And the second thing that you have to do is to be delusional. You have to be optimistic that you can actually do those things and eventually get to those things. And you have to be very delusional with that. This is the same thing with an entrepreneur that works on something that has not been created before. They have to be delusional. They have to be optimistic. They have to be willing to push themselves through the moments where they feel like, I can't do this, whereas nobody else is going to be able to do that. Only you are going to be able to do that. Now, a third thing that you're going to have to do is to push through that feedback and lean into that feedback, not to discount it, but to lean into it and acknowledge that it's there. That's a very real concern and a very real thing that you have to do. And so how do you do that as an academic, as a researcher, as graduate students, is you say, yes, that's absolutely correct. There are these flaws in this thing that I'm working on, and you keep moving forward and you say, this is a flaw. And you might bring this right at the beginning. If you're doing any sort of research, you talk about it right at the beginning, and you say, like, this is the problem that we have, and we're going to try to work towards that particular problem and solve that particular problem. And how to tackle that thing, it is not clear, and how to actually tackle those things. And the last thing that I think is so incredibly important, so the fourth thing that I think is very incredibly important, is to realize you can't do it all. There is, if you addressed all of the concerns and you sort of tackled everything that everybody asked of you, you would be very much broke, and you would work on this project indefinitely and not be able to tackle anything. So what you have to do is just acknowledge that those are limitations at this moment, and you keep moving forward. What you forget in this career, in any career, is that it's a long-term thing. The problems that you have right now are right now. And as you work through those things, those problems are going to disappear. So you have to push those aside and realize that those are real limitations, but we're going to work through them. And we're going to keep going through and pushing through those particular things, no matter what you are doing. And I think actually there's one more thing. So the fifth thing that I think is so incredibly important that we forget is to maintain that conversation, to know that this is an ongoing thing that you're doing. And you have to keep pushing forward with this thing and maintaining that conversation. That's why I'm so part of who you are. That's why I post so much and I do this kind of stuff, because I'm trying to maintain this conversation. I'm trying to connect with you. I'm trying to be part of this. I know that this is this is how you actually do it, is to maintain a conversation. And when you're working on research, for example, and you're curious about something, you might be doing research on comic books, and you might be investigating comic books, which, people do that stuff because it's interesting. It's inherently interesting to some people. And so you might sort of look at those comic books and you start a conversation with other people that are doing comic book research or exploring those particular things. So you start reaching out to those and you keep maintaining that conversation with those folks. And that's what you have to do, and keep pushing forward and keep moving forward, no matter what people say to you and what they throw at you. This is a process. Right. So many of you think at this moment, so, for the few of you that are watching this, you might be thinking that getting into graduate school, getting into your PhD program is the last thing that you have to do. That is the beginning. That's the scratch on actually getting there. Right. And that's why there's such high hurdles to get into academic research and to get into, a PhD program or a doctoral program, is because it is so hard. It is such a journey and such a push to get through all the other stuff. So a lot of times what we are doing, and it might seem really unfair, right? If you're sort of looking at it, you're thinking like, this is really unfair. But what we're looking at, we're saying, is this person going to be able to keep moving forward and push through this, given that there's all these problems that you're going to experience? And that is hard work. And so that's what you're looking for. And it's often hard to identify those folks that have that kind of grit, as Angela Duckworth would say. But you have to identify them, that they're going to push forward and be able to do the things that they need to do. And that's where you have to be okay with pushing forward and being yourself, but keep pushing through all these problems that you're going to encounter, because you're going to encounter them. So I actually want to answer a question at this moment, because this is what I do the live, is to get some insight into you. So Hattie writes, I have a degree in mathematics and computer science, a master's in management. I'm doing my spare time modules of physics today, and I want to get a master's in physics, then a PhD. Any advice? I would do, if I were you, just keep moving forward, doing these things that you're doing, and keep upgrading what you're doing, and realize that it is this long-term journey. I sort of mentioned that already. It is very much a long-term journey, and it doesn't matter how quickly you actually get there. It really doesn't. People forget that everybody thinks it's a race and you have to sort of show how impressive you actually are, Hattie. But really, it is this long-term journey. So you keep scratching at this thing and keep scratching at it and keep focusing on this thing. The one thing that I would do when looking at what you're doing, you're obviously very talented, you know a lot of stuff. And I would identify some sort of phenomenon or something that you are interested in, not just the material itself. So, whether it's computer science and mathematics, what is the thing that's in there that is interesting? You're doing physics. So what is the fundamental thing that you're really interested in that is not kind of related to the theory itself, that you can be motivated to push forward? So maybe you're interested in something to do with particle accelerators or something like that, right? Like some sort of contextual thing that you can dive into. Or maybe you want to go to NASA one day and you're thinking of becoming an astronaut. Well, then figuring out what it takes to become an astronaut, that's going to be a really important thing for you to do at this moment, is to really carve out that context, that thing that you are fundamentally interested in. You sound a lot like me. And I had to learn that there's kind of two levels to what we actually do. There's multiple levels to what we actually do. The first level is having an understanding of the theoretical stuff, which I think you're kind of getting, but then also having a sort of passion in something that is phenomenologically driven, something that is something that other people can understand, and you can that other people can identify with this, right? So Hattie writes back, particle physics is what he's interested in. So if you could be that person that is the particle physicist, and that's what you're fascinated with, that's what you need to do. And you keep pushing forward and you start looking at other things that are related to what you're doing, and you keep moving forward in that direction. That's what you have to do. with the career and just be fascinated with it and just be puzzled with it constantly. And that's how you actually develop a really robust research stream in what you're doing. And you also have to realize that this is truly, for all of us, even if you go into industry and you have some amazing career in industry, which many of you will, is you have to be fascinated in something. And those people that are in the industry, they're still just as fascinated with those things. They don't stop with it. It just means it's a different context in how they're actually studying this particular thing. So if there's no more questions, I'm going to head out at this moment, but I just wanted to check in and say thank you so much for following along with the Reciprocity Project. It is an absolute honor that you actually follow along and watch this crazy kooky person. So I greatly appreciate everything that you do. And if you want to help out with the Reciprocity Project, go on and buy some credits on there. That's going to help out so much. I greatly appreciate it. But in the meantime, give me a thumbs up and do subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done that. All right, take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.